Hey guys, hey Texas. I've got chicken fried rice. And actually, chicken fried rice, it's pretty good. So does pork fried rice, truth be told. um, just a little warning way before, well, not way before, but before we get into the meat of this video. In case anybody that is watching is not aware of the subject matter that I'm going to cover, and you've got, either you're sensitive yourself, you have small children in the room, you might want to get them out before we start discussing this, because we're going to cover two of the I guess they called them Mondo films, but well, they did back in the 70s pretty much. And one of them, Faces of Death, has been revealed to be mostly faked or staged footage, which really makes it more of a, I guess, a novelty item or something, or, one of those rite of passage things, you got to watch Faces of Death. Um, But the second one, the second collection I'm going to be talking about is Traces of Death. Now, we're only covering the first of each one of these. Now, I hope to be able to continue this. I'm going to watch as many Traces of Death and Faces of Death that I have access to. Uh, but the reason why I'm giving the disclaimer is for Traces of Death, basically. Because for those of you that have never seen Traces of Death, it's probably going to blow your freaking mind when I start telling you about it. For those of you that have heard me talk briefly about it on some other streams, you kind of get some kind of content of what the footage is like that is shown on Traces of Death. Um, so, TJ, you said, "Hey there, I had tacos for dinner." Well, I hope your stomach's not sensitive, TJ, because we're gonna be talking about some, at least with the second collection of footage, is gonna be a little bit nerve jangling. It might make some people ill. And I'm not kidding. I am not kidding about this. Um, Texas, you say I'm actually having chicken strips, chicken fried rice for the rainbow eyes. LOL. Um, hey Ben, hey X-ray. Ben, you say all doom and no gloom. um, X-ray, you say didn't Faces of Death beat Star Wars box office wise in Japan? It may have. I don't know for sure. X-ray. Red, you say this is all subject, but I hate drug addicts. Okay. I'm not sure how that ties in with what I'm going to talk about tonight, but okay. um, hey, Menelect. TJ, you say funny. I just watched Faces One on YouTube last week with the producer and Felsher commentary. Yeah, that is really. I think that's a really good commentary, even if it's done for a collection of footage um, that people would think, why would you have to put a commentary over that? But I think it was a real eye opener about what exactly maybe they were trying to do with Faces of Death. I know exactly what they were trying to do with Traces of Death, which I'm going to talk about that in more detail when I get to that one. In particular, there's one. Uh, there's some footage in there when it gets to talking about suicides that is very disturbing in and of itself. And I feel like it made me angry because it felt like it was exploited to sell a freaking tape. And I also want to warn the unsuspecting about traces of death. Don't get sucked in like I did to face. I thought Traces of Death was going to be another Faces of Death, you know. Found out it was totally a complete 360 to what Faces of Death was and is. X-Ray said the monkey sequence was the worst. I still think Spielberg ripped it off for Temple of Doom. It's been a while since I've seen the Temple of Doom, so um, yeah, the monkey sequence. We're going to talk about that here in just a bit. The one from Faces of Death, actually. So the reason why, and again, you guys may be so sick of me talking about my work troubles. For those of you that have been in every stream that I've talked about it on, so I do apologize for bringing it up again. But I had been toying with the idea of doing a Faces of Death, Traces of Death series of streams. But I just hadn't gotten around to it. Well, with the things that have been going on with work, and I don't think things are going to go very well, even though I've got more paperwork from my doctor that pretty much says I shouldn't go around people. I shouldn't be in the office for my safety and their safety, but I know they're going to push back. And so I was thinking, well, if this is going to mean the death of my current job, then let's do a Faces of Death, Traces of Death thing and call it the Doom and Gloom show. So I don't know how exactly. I'm not happy by any stretch of the imagination the prospect of losing my job. But I'm almost, once tomorrow is out of the way and I hear what they've got to say, it's like the anticipation of what they're going to say is a lot worse than actually dealing with it. It's one of those cases. So, although my stomach's a little tied up in knots now, um, I would imagine whether it goes in my favor or not, which I don't think it's going to go in my favor. I'm not that positive about it. Um, I think even if they do say, okay, if you don't come back by Friday in the office, you're terminated. I think I might feel a sense of relief that it's just all over, you know. Um, and then I'll just pick up from there and continue searching for another job as I've already have been, and just move on from there. I think the worst part of all of this is how Steve really feels about it. Steve has tried to be supportive and stuff, but he's pretty angry with me for um, not just. He said if it was him, he would just forget the fight, forget standing up for anything, forget being admirable or trying to help future people or anything like that. He thinks I should just drop it. If they say come back to the office, go back to the office, wear a mask, do this. And I said, yeah, but Steve, it's not just about other people. I care about other people. I said, it's about me. I could end up in the hospital. I could end up dead. I said, do you want either a wife that's in the hospital for months or do you want a dead wife? But of course that just makes him angrier. But I guess he's thinking of in terms of how it's going to affect our little family if I'm without a job for a little bit, which I'm not intending to be without a job for a long time, and I'm planning on getting my unemployment for whatever the length of time is. Hopefully I'll get another job real quickly. But I gotta put this up here. X-Ray said, nah, I think most of us are used to Daner's shitty job vent intro at this point. LOL. Thank you, X-Ray. Um, I take it Red wants me to move on to what we're talking about. Well, you must have missed me talking about giving the warning, Red. We're not actually talking about movies per se tonight. We're talking about Faces of Death, the original Faces of Death, and we're talking about Traces of Death, which was the warning that I was giving everybody was for Traces of Death. If you are sensitive to any, like talking about scenes of real death, um, violence against animals, and I'm sensitive against violence against animals. Talking about suicides, um, any number of things like that. Sex change operations, and I'm talking male to female. We're going to talk about that. There is a scene of that. Autopsies, any of that stuff. You might not want to be in this stream tonight. Just a warning. Also, if you have young children, as I said earlier, you might want to get them out of the room if you're going to continue to watch this, or put a headset on or do something so they're not hearing exactly what we're talking about. So that is what we're going to talk about tonight. I do also want to remind everybody that let's see. I don't know. Depending on how things go tomorrow, I may do a stream tomorrow night. I may just be elated and might do a stream. I don't know. But Tuesday, we're definitely going to be finishing up the final installment of Argento versus Fulci. We've only got 4 movies total to talk about, 2 Argento movies, 2 Fulci movies, because basically I ran out of Fulci movies to talk about. And Wednesday will be Cheese Extreme Wednesday. And who knows what I might have for the rest of, the remaining two days of the work week. And then Saturday, we will be doing a watch along for Savage Streets, which I don't think Darren's in here, but it was his pick. And then the following Saturday after that, I believe, is the Maximum Overdrive watch along that old Curly Jaws suggested. And the first Sunday of October, we will be doing Texas's pick of Don't Go in the House. So we got all of that to look forward to, plus whatever else I decide to sprinkle in as the weeks roll on. Thank you, TJ, for saying sorry about your work. Greener pastures, as they say. I know that's not a huge help. No, actually, it is, TJ, because every positive thing that somebody throws my way does, chip away at the I don't really want to say depression, but the darker aspects of the thought of losing your job, because I have never gotten fired from any job at any time, any point in time in my work career. So I'm really my own worst critic in a lot of things. So and I don't know if anybody is interested in coming on tonight with me. But if you are at any point in time, just let me know in the chat and I will send you the link. And that way you can come on and talk about these 2 collections of footage, basically. Because like I told Red, they're not really movies. So now that, all the sensitive people, really super sensitive people have left, and I hope everybody is taking me seriously about the Traces of Death, because this is not me bullshitting. This is not me kidding. The Traces of Death is really serious. And you can ask anybody that's watched any of these. Um, Faces of Death is a little bit different story, which I'm going to cover that one first. Um, so let's go ahead and get started since it's almost 20 after 8 and I've blabbed quite a bit. Um, oh, TJ, before I get started though, I did want to ask you how the Fabio Frizzi concert was. Um, I guess it was last night. Yeah. Because I was curious to know how that went. It sounded really cool, actually. And I may have to go too and get something to eat. I know with all this gruesomeness we're going to be talking about, you're probably thinking, what in the world? Why do you want to eat? Um, but I will have to get a snack at some point. Steve hates the word snack too. I don't get that. Does anybody else hate the word snack? He's just weird about certain words. He says I say them too much or something. I don't know. Gets on his nerves. But TJ, you go ahead and post in there at any point in time. But I don't want to delay starting to talk about these two items. Uh, we got 8 people in there. Oh, okay. TJ says, let me put this up here. It was great. There's a short clip on my YouTube here. Here's the pic link to my Instagram. Got to see him before the show in the green room before and got to see the band practice a little. Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Faces of Death. And yes, this is a Blu-ray. I do actually have a Blu-ray of this thing. So why I don't know. But it came out, I guess this was the 30th anniversary edition. And I think what came out, this came out like what, 78 or 79. And this Blu-ray came out in 2008. So it does say, I don't know if you guys can see that real good. It does say banned in 43 countries. And used to, and I've talked about this before, anything that said banned in so many, whatever number of countries they wanted to put on there, that could almost guarantee that I was going to rent it, way back when. Entertainment Weekly actually called this the ultimate taboo, but evidently they didn't see traces of death. And I believe there were 5, maybe 6 Faces of Death releases. But as far as I know, this was the only one that was put out on Blu-ray. I guess they maybe think that's the most infamous one, but I am going to try to do you guys a favor and watch them all, or all that I can get access to, as well as all 5 or 6 of the Traces of Death, because I only remember watching way back when the first Traces of Death, and honestly, that was enough for me at that time. So I'll read you a little bit of a plot synopsis, if you can call it that, from the back of the Blu-ray. It begins a graphic exploration of the one destiny we cannot escape. It would soon become the most morally controversial, critically reviled, and financially successful documentary of the VHS era. Parents groups tried to stop it, video stores had to hide it. Yet across the nation, millions found ways to secretly watch it if they dared. Renowned pathologist Dr. Francis B. Gross, and that's not a real guy, that's not his real name, is your guide to the most bizarre and grisly death scenes ever recorded, from executions, assassinations, and mass murder to suicide, disease, and disasters. 3 decades later, is it hardcore, gross out, elaborate hoax, or still the ultimate forbidden movie? You may scream in shock, weep with anguish, or flee in horror, but you will never forget the original Faces of Death. Yeah, be gross, huh? Yeah. Okay. So, and this also has Dolby Digital 5.1 sound. So it's like, okay, they really pulled out all the stops for something that was really considered a Mondo feature. So when I first watched it way back when, I did notice that some of the scenes that were filmed seemed to be staged. One being, in particular, the alligator wrangling scene where supposedly a animal control guy gets chomped on by the alligator, and they're pulling his corpse out of the lake, and they're supposedly talking to a mother and her daughter about being afraid to get in the lake and swim, and all of that. And then the next thing you know, the animal control guy is getting chomped on. Um, so, I mean, in the execution scene, although that did look a little hokey when I was a kid, I wasn't so sure, was this real, was it not? Um, but it turns out that was also staged. That was not real. The infamous monkey brain sequence where they hit a poor monkey in the head repeatedly with these little hammers, and then once the monkey is dead, they slice off the top of his head, take the brains out, and everybody at the table takes a taste of the brains. And there's this hokey sequence where one of the people at the table is talking about, if I can get closer to God by eating monkey brains, that's what I'll do, or something like that. It's like, what in the heck? Why would you think eating monkey brains would get you closer to God? I have no idea. But that whole scene, if you really pay attention to that scene, you can notice that the head of the monkey that they're taking the brains out of is obviously fake. But hey, when we're kids and you just hear about this at school or on the playground or whatever, and everybody's talking about it, and it's like, uh, yeah, did you see that Faces of Death? That's the goriest thing I've ever seen. When you hear that kind of stuff as a kid, of course that's going to make you want to watch it. Even if your parents wouldn't want you to watch it, it's going to be something that you want to, um, take a gander at. Like I said, it becomes a rite of passage type of thing. Um, Red, you say I never rented those. I had the opportunity to around 2000. That heard there a lot of videos were fake. Yeah, definitely with the Faces of Death, you can definitely tell a lot of stuff was staged. There is one particular sequence that is taken from real, I guess, like news footage or something like that. Is it the plane crash that took place in San Diego in September? Like, I think it was a few months before Faces of Death actually came out. How they got that footage, I don't exactly know. But that was of a real plane crash, where a rather large passenger airplane, and it killed everybody on board, hit a Cessna, a small plane, a light plane, or whatever they want to call it, and basically crashed into a neighborhood, and it killed some people on the ground as well. And I think injured some, but I think it killed pretty much everybody. Yeah, it killed everybody on board. So there are scenes of that, of them covering dead bodies, and things like that. Now, that is supposedly real footage of that, of the aftermath of that plane crash. So, um, that, as far as I know, is I mean, there might be some like grainy footage that is real stuff, but like, for instance, the scene where Francis B. Gross was supposed to have been allowed to see this cult, the inside of this cult. The guy that plays the cult leader is actually, I think, the director or something of Faces of Death. And it's really kind of hokey. If you look at it now when you were a kid, you were probably like, wow. Of course, the guy's laying it on pretty thick. I mean, he's evidently trying to act like cult leaders like Charles Manson, Jim Jones, stuff like that. And supposedly they're sacrificing a person and eating their internal organs, and then they're just basically having a blood orgy. But really, like I said, it's all really hokey. There is a scene that I thought, even now, I thought it was real, and I kind of turned away when watching it. But it's a dog fight scene where supposedly two pit bulls are fighting to the death. But I read about this later that the dogs were actually playing. It was like intercutting. And I guess they threw a bunch of fake blood on these poor dogs and maybe sedated one or something so it looked dead later. But I don't know about the chicken head cutting scene. That looked pretty realistic to me. I didn't like that. There was some slaughterhouse footage, that I believe that was real. There's slaughterhouse footage galore. That's actually real slaughterhouse footage has been used in some other horror films. Slaughterhouse being one of them. At the beginning of the movie Slaughterhouse, there is real slaughterhouse footage. Um, so that's a warning about that movie. If you ever, if you've never watched it and you're thinking about watching it. So, let's see. But I was going to actually give you a quick and dirty rundown on this. This is from looper.com, that talks about the film. Now, the budget was $450,000. So you may be thinking, okay, Dana, you've talked a little bit about what was real, what was faked, but let's take a look at the breakdown on looper.com. So what's real and what's fake in the movie has been a topic of debate for decades. But honestly, it's not difficult to tell the difference between the real archival footage and the showbiz stuff. And actually, it's not, guys. Upon rewatching it, I can clearly tell with most of the stuff. In the days of VHS, though, when tapes were grainy and the internet couldn't clear up confusion, it was easy to spread the belief that some wretched videotape contained footage of real murder. But no one really got sacrificed, and the only thing that was real about the monkey brain sequence was the actors' grossed out reactions to the mushy cauliflower they were eating. And that was what they were eating. They were not eating monkey brains. They were actually eating cauliflower. The only real unscripted sequence in the first film occurred when a body washed up on shore while the crew was shooting at Sunset Beach. Now, I did not know this. Alan Apone, an effects creator for the movie, describes the experience. So he says we were out there and this person comes running up saying there's a body on the beach. There's a body on the beach. Apone said, we ran down there to see what was going on. What they found was a drowned man who had apparently been missing a couple of days. after deciding to go for a swim while intoxicated. Guys, not a good idea. Um, Despite the fact that it was ultimately just another movie, multiple people who worked on the production either changed their names or went uncredited for their work. So they weren't too proud of it. Can't be too careful when you're on the crew of a snuff film. So Alan Apone, along with Douglas White, had a relatively new special effects company at the time. When he was approached by the Faces of Death filmmakers for a project of a peculiar nature, they wouldn't give us any of the information about it. Apone said in a DVD interview, together their team did essential work in crafting the movie's most memorable moments. Now, one of their most infamous productions was the first movie's monkey brain dinner sequence, which was not the portrait of genteel barbarity many took it as. Instead, it was your regular movie effects shot. With a special table and mallet made specifically for the movie, a trained live monkey, and a dummy monkey, of course, to take the fatal blows. Does that make anybody feel any better, actually? The monkey brain scene. The filmmakers hid the parts of the sequence that didn't work with quick cuts, and the result is pretty seamless. In addition to the monkey sequence, Apone's company was in charge of the police shootout. The scene where someone gets eaten by an alligator, the decapitation sequence, and the cult sacrifice. Basically, all of the good stuff. Yeah, there is one scene where a guy gets his head cut off, and it looks like, how we would probably imagine live footage of hostage situations where they killed hostages, to be only, again, I could clearly tell that this was staged, which I wouldn't really want to see any of that real stuff anyway. Uh, Actually, you said the quick editing made that scene disturbing and real. Yeah, and they probably knew that it was gonna make it like that. Poor Chimpy. He's in heaven now with Harambe. Well, he might be in heaven now, but it wasn't because of that scene. Thank God he didn't get killed in that scene. He was evidently a trained monkey. And they clearly did an outstanding job. To this day, the movie's effects creators maintain that people approach them insisting that the movie is real, refusing to believe them when they explain the tricks they use. Now, see, that's the mark of a good special effects person. Or that everyone who supposedly died in the movie is still walking around is just fine. So, so they say also a tremendous amount of real footage, which they bought directly from news stations. This meant that originally the movie was just a long reel of dead bodies, which, in addition to being upsetting, isn't very narratively interesting or fun. And I think that's pretty much what the Traces of Death people did with theirs. And why I think it is ultimately way more disturbing. But we're going to get to that. We knew it was very difficult to watch, Turner said, and that's Glenn Turner, the editor. It was upon his realization that the filmmakers decided to take the approach of recreating scenes. It was the only way to have the movie's individual vignettes tell complete stories rather than just showing the gory aftermath. To get their movie scenes, they painstakingly recreated real accident footage, such as a massive train accident, taking care to get details such as lighting and as realistic to the original shots as possible. So, although they did not show the real scenes of this, they took those real scenes and were able to recreate them or reenact them, which means that this stuff really did happen at some point in time. Now, I'm not so, I have heard that monkey brains are really a delicacy in some other countries, and that they do things either exactly like that or similar to what was shown in Faces of Death. It's just that what we saw in Faces of Death was thankfully not real. So Glenn Turner says we would study the shot of somebody leaping out of a window, and we would look at the kind of stocks they were using for film and the type of camera a camera person. Wait a second here. Some kind of advertisement just came up. The type of camera person that they happened to be using at the time, if they were very shaky in their moves or whatever, Turner said. So, needless to say, the first Faces of Death was successful in a lot of ways, and probably was so successful due to word of mouth, I would imagine. And I'm sure enormous amounts of kids grew up with this being a rite of passage for them. I don't actually think that this was a rite of passage type of thing for me, because I don't think I heard about Faces of Death until I was a little bit older. And I believe it was one of those things I saw at the video store, and not the mom and pop video stores. This was places that I ended up going to much later, like in my late teens or something, and picking up things like Gates of Hell and I Spit on Your Grave and stuff like that. And then you would start running across things like Faces of Death. Okay, so I can talk a little bit about the special features on Faces of Death before we move on to Traces of Death. Haven't lost too many people either. We still got 8 people in here, which is surprising considering the subject matter, but we haven't gotten to the other one yet. So, you do have feature-length commentary with director Conan I'm probably massacring this guy's name, Cellier. And I've been told that Michael Felsher is also on the commentary, and I'm pretty sure he is, because I was thinking that I had listened to this commentary at one time. You also get choice cuts featurette with editor Glenn Turner, the Death Makers featurette with FX creators Alan A. Apone and Douglas J. White, deleted scenes, a trailer, and outtakes. This is at 105 minutes. This is a little bit longer than Traces of Death. I had actually forgotten that it was like an hour and 44 minutes long. I was like, wow, I totally forgot about that. At the time this came out, you could go to gorgonvideo.com, which is www.gorgon-video.com. And you could also go to www.facesofdeath.com, which was a little typing. I could be able to tell you if those sites are still up, in case you were interested in going to them. Faces of Death is no longer active, so you can't go to that. And I'm almost sure that you might not be able to go to Gorgon, because it has been a lot of years since those. I cannot spell, guys. And then for Gorgon Video, I just get something went wrong. There was a problem loading this website, which may very well mean that it is not available either. So I would say no to both of those. TJ, you say yes, Felsher is the mod. It's pretty good in-depth commentary and it's pretty interesting. Probably gives all the secrets away, doesn't it, TJ? Because I was thinking they did, it like you said, it was in depth. Um, so, um, now that we've talked about Faces of Death, I'm sorry I do not have an actual physical visual for Traces of Death. And to be totally honest, I'm not really sure that I would want to have a physical copy. Brain Damage Films, which I believe were ultimately the makers of the Traces of Death series, um, had a box set with all the Traces of Death um, footage things. I can't really call them movies. People call them movies. I guess they are feature lengths, but I don't think of them as movies. Neither one of them, especially not Traces of Death. Um, because Traces of Death is pretty much real footage without having any reenactments and stuff like that. So they had put out a collection of all of these little, I can't even call them Mondo things. Just disturbing clips, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. But like I said, the first Traces of Death is the only one I've ever actually seen before. And the first time I watched it, it turned me off so bad. I had to turn it off at one point. I'm going to tell you what the point was where I just turned it off, took the tape out. Was not interested in finishing it, but I made myself finish it today. Um, and there was very little that I remembered about it other than the one sequence that I'm going to tell you was the one that made me turn it off originally. And now that I'm seeing the rest of it, because I think during the shock initially caused me to turn it off, and there was more after that. That is the part that really made me angry. And I was like, you're really going to exploit a real suicide, to sell a damn tape. I did that would be another reason why I wouldn't want to buy it. Why would I want to give these guys money for exploiting someone's suicide? And some of you might be thinking, well, they had to know the stuff was going to get filmed if there were news cameras and stuff like that, and then things get leaked. But that's not the point. The point is you shouldn't exploit realistic deaths, and definitely not suicides. I mean, the person that committed suicide, like I said, I'm going to talk about it here in a minute. As far as I know, his family, his wife, his kids are still around. And I'm sure they try to stay away from anything like that. But I just have to think, what if they accidentally were able to see that footage? How horrifying for them. And to see how it was exploited. TJ, you say, yeah, he tells you all you ever wanted to know and more. I'm sure. So, okay. So let's get around to Traces of Death. I'm going to give you a little background on it. Traces of Death actually came out in 1993. And they refer to it on Wikipedia as a Z movie mondo shockumentary that consists of various scenes of stock footage depicting death and real scenes of violence. Unlike the earlier Faces of Death, which included fake deaths and reenactments, Traces consist mostly of actual footage depicting death and injury, and consist almost of public domain footage from other films. It was written and narrated by Damon Fox. Since its release, Traces of Death has been followed by 4 sequels. The first sequel, Traces of Death 2, was released in June 1994. This was followed by Traces of Death 3 in December 94, Traces of Death 4, Resurrected in 96, and Traces of Death 5, Back in Action, which was released as late as April 2000. So, About the film content. In the first two films of the series, Damon Fox was the narrator. Darren Ramage, who would later become the founder of Brain Damage Films, would become the host for the third, fourth, and fifth volumes. Unlike Faces of Death, the footage throughout the entire films are real and are not staged or reenacted. Starting with Traces of Death 2, scenes were accompanied by background music from death metal and grindcore bands. Also contained in the series, especially in the first one, is footage of step by step autopsy procedures, which are shown from a coroner's point of view. Most of the other footage is recognizably notable. Among the footage samples seen on Traces of Death and in the sequels that follows are listed below. Um, and some of this is included, a lot of it that I'm looking at here on the list is included actually on Traces of Death. So the 1993 murder of Martiza Martin Munoz, the 1988 police chase of armed bank robber Philip Hutchinson, the 1980 Iranian embassy siege, the 1989 suicide attempt of Terry Rossland, the 1984 I can't even talk. 1984 race car accident of Ricky Rudd, the 1990 race car accident of Alan McNish, the 1990 racing incident of Willie T. Ribbs, the 1992 racing accident of Kerry Madsen, the 1986 Rally de Portugal accident, the 1992 accident of the monster truck Bad Medicine, the 1966 motorcycle stunt accident of Evel Knievel, the 1967 Caesar Palace jump stunt accident of Evel Knievel. So Evel Knievel had an accident in 66 and one in 67. The 1990 Dynamo Red Star riot, the 1986 Calgary Stampede chuck wagon accident, the 1989 horse riding accident of Bill Peck, the 1990 parachute skydiving accident of Mike McGee and Greg Jones, the 1992 Maracana Stadium collapse, Anatoly Kuvisher's plane at the 1989 Paris Air Show crashing after a bird strike, and the most notorious one, in my opinion, and the one that made me very angry and very disturbed, is the 1987 press conference suicide of R. Bud Dwyer. But before I get into all that, the film also contains allegedly staged footage from Savage Man, Savage Beast, where a tourist, Pitt Dimmitz, supposedly gets mauled and eaten by African lions. There are other scenes that feature animals, included undated footage of a pig experiment by military scientists at a burn center in Fort Sam, Houston, derived from the 1987 Mondo film entitled True Gore, which I've never seen. An animal control officer, Florence Crowell, being attacked by a pit bull in Los Angeles, California in 1987, and a black bear getting shocked off a utility pole in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1989. Also, the first two films both contain scenes of sex reassignment surgery, which is featured in the 1974 Mondo film Shocking Asia, for those of you that have seen that. Some autopsy footage was taken from the 1961 U.S. Army training film Basic Autopsy Procedure. Also included is an interview with James Vance, who had attempted suicide with a shotgun at a church playground in Sparks, Nevada, which is taken from the documentary Dream Deceivers. The only known footage showing evidence of Ilsa Koch is included as well. So that is a little background. You're talking about Christine Chubbuck, Red. I have not seen the real Christine Chubbuck video of the suicide. I do have the movie that came out a few years back that is based on the life and disturbing end of Christine Chubbuck. A really well made film. It's just called Christine, but very disturbing. And I would warn sensitive viewers about watching that as well. I have seen things on the internet that purport to be footage of Christine Chubbuck committing suicide on national news or whatever you want to call it. But the video is so awful that you can't tell who or what that may be in the video or what is even going on. And I have also heard that that footage has never leaked out anywhere. I read and researched that that footage was actually under lock and key for a long time by maybe a producer or something for that television news station. And when he died, I think it was in his wife's hands. I don't know if his wife is dead now, so I don't know where the heck that footage is. Christine Chubbuck's brother might have it for all I know. But unlike the Bud Dwyer footage, which is everywhere, unfortunately, the Christine Chubbuck video footage, as far as I know, has never surfaced. But, I could be wrong. Hey, Darren, we're going to talk about some depressing shit right now. I've already talked about Faces of Death. I've moved on to Traces of Death. Ryan, you say, hey, Dana, I mentioned this on Facebook, but have you seen The Killing of America? I don't believe I have, Ryan. I'm sorry I missed your comment on Facebook. Would you recommend that? Because I could certainly try to find it somewhere. Well, that does make me laugh, Darren. You say you just saw the monsters and it's really, really bad. Did you pay money to see it, Darren? So again, guys, like there's some really disturbing shit in this video, and I am not lying. I am not trying to pump up this live stream by telling you that. It really is disturbing. And not all of it includes the talk of suicides and murders and stuff like that. A lot of you guys may be really disturbed by the male to female sex change operation that is done in graphic detail, including the penis cutting scene, which is, and I'm not even a male, is very, very graphic. Very graphic. Also included on this collection is as bad as shock diet, LOL. Oh, well, I'm glad you didn't pay any money. You say it's been leaked online. I wonder if Rob Zombie's pissed about that. But there is also a scene where it looks like, at first I wasn't sure. I was like, that looks like a child to me. And I thought at first they were doing, which freaked me out even more. At first, I thought that they were doing and maybe they were, I don't know, but I couldn't really tell if they were doing brain surgery on a child or they were doing a freaking autopsy on the child, but whatever, it was very intense. And I think I did fast forward a little bit past that, because that was a scene that came after the Bud Dwyer live suicide, on camera suicide scene. Okay. So, guys, imagine this. I pick up traces of death at the video store that I was frequenting at that time. I'm thinking just by reading on the back of the VHS case, or, on the back of the VHS, that it's going to be another Faces of Death ripoff. And I didn't think any more about it. I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be like Faces of Death. Okay. And I think I had heard whisperings at that point in time. The Faces of Death was a lot of those big scenes were faked or staged. And so I naturally thought this was going to be more of the same, and it wasn't. And I didn't even know who Bud Dwyer was, what his story was, or anything like that at the time. But, the scene just popped on there. That's the way a lot of these scenes did in Traces of Death. It just like they would be showing something with music going in the background, and all of a sudden it pops to Bud Dwyer's press conference. And way back when, I was thinking it was an office atmosphere, but it's not. It wasn't too far off. And so here's a guy who is handing out letters to these people, and he's saying, "Where's so and so?" He's calmly handing these letters out, and then he goes back up to where the podium is at the head of this room. And he's got a pretty large manila envelope. And at that point in time, I thought, well, I don't know what he's going to pull out of there. Maybe he's going to pull out more letters. But no, he pulls out a handgun. And when people, you got a lot of news people and different things, because the backstory to Bud Dwyer is he was accused of embezzling money or taking money under the table. It turned out, after the poor man's suicide, of course, that somebody else was trying to cover their own ass, and so they put the blame on him, and Bud Dwyer never did any of that. And the whole reason why Bud Dwyer wanted to commit suicide, I don't know really why he chose to do it publicly. But when you're messed up mentally like that, you don't think, I guess. And he just didn't want his family to suffer the shame or whatever of him being, of him going to prison and stuff like that. So I guess he figured, if I take myself out, I won't go to prison. My family won't have to suffer because of this. But what people don't think about when they do go ahead and commit suicide is the aftermath of you committing suicide. And again, the poor man was probably not thinking about that at all in his state of mind at that time. I mean, if he had been thinking clearly, he definitely wouldn't have brought a gun to a press conference with him. And the reason why all these news people were there is they thought that Bud Dwyer was going to step down from his where he was, and I forgot what he was. He was obviously a politician, but he was one of the few honest politicians out there. There's a really good documentary just on Bud Dwyer called An Honest Man. And if you want to, find out more about this guy and not just the suicide and the scandal and all that stuff, then I highly recommend it. Ryan, you say that the killing of America, it's kind of like Faces and Traces, but it focuses more on gun violence, serial killers, and things similar to Traces. It uses, I think, all real footage. Severin put it out. I may see if, I don't know if I want to buy something like that, but I might see if Steve can get it for me. Darren, you say, I'm not even sure I could watch Traces of Death. I did see the suicide you're talking about, and it's horrendous. It is, Darren. It's like, so back to me talking about the first time I saw this and the point at which I turned the tape off because I was just horrified. was, he takes the gun out. And when some of the people at this press conference start looking up and seeing him with a gun, their first thought is, "Oh God, he's going to kill us." When they're like, you can hear them say, "Bud, don't," you know, and I guess he's trying to let them know, "I don't intend to hurt you guys, but please don't come near me because this gun could hurt somebody." And so, you can hear the people in the background, obviously, don't. He sticks the gun in his mouth, pulls the trigger. He goes back against, kind of slides down the wall. He's sitting there with blood pouring out of his mouth and nose. It's the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life because it was real. I mean, that stuff was real. At that point, I was sitting there and I'm sure my face was just blank and white and horrified. I guess if I had been looking in a mirror, I would have seen exactly what I look like. But at this point in time, I wouldn't really want to know what I look like. I was just so in shock, but not so in shock that I couldn't physically turn it off. I turned it off. I took the tape out. I don't even think I bothered rewinding that sucker. And it got shipped back to the video store. No more of that. But for y'all's benefit, I actually sat through the entire thing this time around. And the part that made me it made me angry, number one, if they would include an actual suicide on footage like this. That's just reprehensible to me. But what's even more reprehensible is these jokers that put this out showed like repeat footage of Bud Dwyer putting the gun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. And they did that like 3 to 5 times. It was just bam, 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 bam. And I was like, what the hell are you guys doing? Then they had it in slow motion. The whole, putting the gun in his mouth and shooting himself in slow motion. I'm like, what the hell? What kind of mind would do that? So I'm really, I guess, more than anything, I'm wanting to warn people about this that haven't seen it. And you know me, I'll watch any shit. But when it gets too close for comfort like that, and they're showing real stuff, and you can tell they're exploiting the hell out of that without any thought about his family, his memory, or how this might affect somebody that's watching this shit, you know. So, but that's not the only place that you can find the Bud Dwyer on-air suicide. Unfortunately, it is on YouTube. It's all over the internet. Um, and I understand his family would probably just rather stay far, far away from it. And they probably never even seen traces of death or want to watch anything like that. But I just think it's horrible. And I don't care if the guy from Brain Damage Films hears me talk about this on the stream. If he sees I'm talking about traces of death and he's like, oh, I'm going to watch it. I want him to hear me say how reprehensible I think that is to exploit a real suicide, to sell your damn tapes or DVDs or whatever. So that made me really super angry. And just before that, they were talking to, I believe it was, let's see, what was the guy's real name here? Shoot. Sorry, guys, my mouse just poo-pooed on me. Let me plug it in here. Hold on, guys. I'd have known it was going to do that to me. Okay. So I guess that was the James Vance guy that they are talking to in the playground on a merry-go-round, and he's talking about, I guess, a friend of his was sitting right next to him and committed suicide, and then he wanted to commit suicide, but he kept saying, I didn't really want to die, but it was like I wasn't in control of my body. And he said at the point that his friend shot himself, he took the shotgun and shot himself. But he lived, but his face, you could clearly tell they were trying to reconstruct his face because I guess he blowed half of his face off. Um, yes, Darren, it certainly can. That real stuff can stick with you for a long time. And the Bud Dwyer thing has stuck with me all these years. It's something I will never forget. And like I said, you guys know me. I'm against censorship, and I will fight for anything to be out there. And I'm not going to try to have a crusade against brain damage films and these guys putting that stuff out. I'm not going to do that, but I think people need to understand that there's quite a bit of exploitation going on in this case, in order to make money. And I don't think that's what they were trying to do with Faces of Death at all. I think it was just a project. It was another project that they were working on. Hey, Dirk. Dirk says, hey, y'all, just finished Massacre at Central High. Pretty fun one and a great transfer from Synopsis as usual. Yes, and that is a refreshing change of pace from what I've just been talking about, actually. Texas, you say, wasn't that the guys who tried to kill themselves because of Judas Priest? I really don't know. I'm not familiar with like the James Vance thing. Maybe I can look it up. You could be right. Because when you put up James Vance, Judas Priest stuff came up here. Let's see. So James Vance and his friend Raymond Belknap were depressed teenagers whose lives were in shambles. So they made a suicide pact on December 23rd, 1985. Vance and Belknap went to a church playground. Okay, yeah. While intoxicated on substances, and both of them shot themselves in the faces with a shotgun. Vance survived while Belknap died. Vance spent from 1985 to 1988 going through reconstructive surgery, along with spending time in a mental institution to try to combat drug abuse and suicidal thoughts. Unfortunately, he died in 1988 from complications of surgery and his use of methadone to try and cure his drug addiction. His family sued the rock group Judas Priest and blamed the music for their son's death. His family lost the case. So, yeah, that I guess you would be right on that, Texas. So, again, if you want to learn more about James Vance and his friend, you would need to watch Dream Deceivers, the story behind James Vance versus Judas Priest. Which I am very sorry about what happened to the guy that died and what happened to James Vance. And I'm sorry that he's no longer with us. And I'm sorry that his family thought that it was related to Judas Priest music. But that is one thing that I don't think that movies or music or any of that stuff, one lead, they don't lead people to kill themselves. They don't lead people to kill others. There's something else going on. they clearly state that these two guys were both depressed. And, to pinpoint Judas Priest, whether you like their music or don't like their music, is just silly. But I understand his family was in pain because of what had happened. So naturally, yeah, they're gonna pinpoint the one thing, I guess, that was big in both of these guys' lives at the time. Darky said, I remember Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails got arrested for having a real Mexican snuff film. Ugh, why would you want that? I do not want to ever see a real snuff film. Darren, you said, I just Googled James Vance and God, that stuff's horrific. Yeah. Yeah, that just a little clip they had on Traces of Death where they were talking to James Vance, and he was already, I guess, starting the process of reconstructive surgery. Um, yeah, it's definitely part of that satanic panic stuff, Texas. I wouldn't doubt it. Um, but guys, now that I brought everybody way, way down, is there, you know, the Traces of Death stuff is rough to watch. I definitely wouldn't recommend it for those under 18, maybe not those under 21. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it, but just a warning that we're not dealing with Faces of Death territory here. We're dealing with a whole other level. And although the first one is the only one that I watched, now I can say I watched it in its entirety. I'm going to attempt to watch the others, or as many that I can get access to, but it's probably going to take me a while because I'm not really wanting to go back and say, woohoo, I want to watch Traces of Death too. Um, and I downloaded actually the video files for Traces of Death, but I'm not going to keep them because I have no interest in, revisiting that probably ever again. I mean, I've already covered it for the stream, and I don't see myself ever watching that again. But I could probably stay on here a little bit longer. I didn't intend this to be like a super long one because, how much can you talk about that stuff before it starts to become repetitive? And I really don't want to depress anybody too much. It's just that I kind of promised you guys that I would cover these films or cover these documentaries, shockumentaries, whatever you want to call them. And so I want to make good on that. Dark, actually, Faces of Death, most of the stuff, the majority of the stuff on Faces of Death, at least on the first Faces of Death, was not real. It was staged. There is some real news footage that was used, and some of the reenacted footage was more than likely based on real stuff, but it wasn't the real footage. They actually studied the real footage, the special makeup effects guys and stuff, and then reenacted it. I don't think they were interested really in putting that stuff out in its raw form. But they said that they looked at what film stock was used on the actual footage and tried to replicate that. What the moves that the cameraman had, was he shaky with the camera or whatever? And they just tried to mimic that basically. There is some actual real footage of a plane crash that happened in San Diego in September, just like a few months before this came out in 78 or so. And it was included on there. Now that, and there might be one more scene. I think that was of a guy that washed up on the beach. Um, and that was just coincidence that they were there filming something else, and somebody said a body just washed up, and so that is real. And then the footage, I guess, that they got from a news studio of the plane crash, where a large passenger airplane hit a Cessna light plane, and everybody on board the big plane. I'm almost sure the people on the light plane died as well, but I do know that everybody on the large passenger, the Boeing or whatever they call those, died. And I think there were some people that got injured that were on the ground, and maybe a couple of people that died that were on the ground. Dirk, you say, I remember seeing a dude getting shot in the face with an AK in part 3 or 4 in Iraq. It looked real as hell. And I'm going to get to parts 3 and 4. I don't even think I've watched every Faces of Death, so I will be sure to let you know what's real, what's not real in those. I will do my research before I get to those. But I was just covering the first one tonight. Durkee said it also had crucifixions on that one, from what I remember. See, I clearly remember Faces of Death, but I'm really going to have to do my homework with the others. But Dirk, have you seen any of the Traces of Death? Traces of Death, I was really giving it down the road. But I was going to say, we can talk about any number of things. We don't have to keep talking about this stuff if y'all don't want to. If you want to, fine. If you don't want to, fine. But we can just kind of, like I always say, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks a little bit. I'm kind of surprised that Wes didn't come in here tonight, because he knows about Traces of Death. He knows exactly what I'm talking about with that. But maybe Dead Pit was doing something tonight. I don't know. Darky said, I don't think so, but maybe. Well, the big thing that I was talking about that made me so angry and I thought was very exploitive was, have you heard of Bud Dwyer? He killed himself on camera at a press conference. There's a great documentary about him called An Honest Man, if you're interested in watching it. He was wrongly accused of embezzling town money, or taxpayers' money, I guess, or taking bribes under the table, something like that. And it turned out, unfortunately, after his suicide, that he didn't do any of those things, that somebody was trying to cover their own ass, and they blamed it all on Bud Dwyer. So, but so now that I've depressed everybody beyond belief, talking about Derek, you say To Kill a Mockingbird 4K is ready for pre-order now. I'm going to have to try to figure out from Steve and make sure that he has it pre-ordered already. That is his all-time favorite movie. I was shocked when Steve told me about that To Kill a Mockingbird was his favorite movie of all time, because it just does not seem like a Steve movie at all. But it is a good movie, or a great movie, actually. So I'd like to get it for him if he hasn't already got it pre-ordered. Oh, goodness. Oh. So we still got, looks like 9 people in here. And I noticed nobody wanted to be live with me when I was talking about that freaking Traces of Death stuff. which I don't really blame you guys. I don't. It's not a fun topic to discuss. Well, bless your heart, Dirk. You got one for your mom as well. That's really nice. So, is your mom got like a 4K setup? I think that's awesome. I'd love to get my parents set up with 4K, but they'd probably say, Dana, we don't need that. That's the way they always are. We don't care about 4K or whatever. But I think I'm going to step away for just 1 second, guys. I'm going to put up the Evil Dead background here. Maybe. No. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I had to run to the restroom, and then I was getting me some pretzels and some cheddar cheese. Does anybody else out there like to eat pretzels with cheddar cheese or just cheese in general? Or am I the only weird one? Red, you say my uncle came back from Desert Storm with some wild ass war pictures, and my grandfather threw them right in the trash. um, that's the thing about. I don't think I would want to really see any real war pictures. Like the aftermath of war and stuff like that. All you need to do is listen to Tom Savini talk about his experience in Vietnam. That would be enough, I think. Mm, Ryan, you say pretzels and cheese is great, especially if it's beer cheese. I love beer cheese with the pretzels, but unfortunately, I don't have any beer cheese right now. And Ryan, you also want to know, got any playing shows coming up later this week? I do actually. You probably missed it a little bit earlier when I was talking about. But actually, I let's see. Monday, I don't know, depending on how the work situation goes. If it goes bad, I still might want to do one just to cheer myself up. I don't think it's going to go good, but I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong in the past. So I don't know, but I'm definitely going to do my final installment of Argento versus Fulci on Tuesday. We've only got 4 movies total to cover. 2 Argento films, 2 Fulci films. So if you're interested in Argento and Fulci, want to hear me talk about some of their later films, you're welcome to show up for that one. Wednesday, I will be doing She's Extreme Wednesday. And I have totally forgotten what the movies were. So forgive me one moment while I go grab those movies, and that way I can tell Ryan and everybody else what I'm going to be covering. And also, guys, another reason for me wanting to get back to the country is because we got some crazy ass annoying neighbors in this neighborhood. That on freaking Sunday nights, when people got to start their work week, normally on Monday, they want to start this shit of playing some kind of rhythmic music that's just going dun 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 over and over and over again. I think it's the guy just down the street. He has parties in his garage or something. It's like, why the hell do you have parties on Sunday? Why don't you have them on Saturday or Friday or something? Not freaking when people are getting ready for their work week and they need their rest. It's like super annoying. I can especially hear it back here in the back room. And I'm betting if Steve's not sleeping good, he can hear that rhythmic noise um, coming, in the bedroom, which is at the other part of the other end of the house. It's like there's nothing more annoying, especially when you're trying to sleep, is rhythmic sounds like that. And it literally is dun 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 dun. And every time that guy does that, it's like, what the heck? Are you playing the same freaking music every time? Or is a band playing and they're doing that? It's like, oh, super annoying. Sorry about that. But um But anyway, um, the two movies I'm doing for Cheese Extreme Wednesday are The Redeemer, Son of Satan, aka Class Reunion Massacre, and Return to Horror High with George Clooney and Maureen McCormick. Uh, Durkee say, I made a Velveeta dip with hamburger meat earlier while I watched my Saints lose their ass. Fucking bums. Well, I'm sorry about that, Dirk, but the Velveeta dip with hamburger meat sounds delicious. I'm hoping it was good. I'm just trying to adjust my camera again. I think that camera slides forward or something and it cuts off the top of my head. And it doesn't really matter, I guess, but it just bothers me. Red, you say, only pretzel brand I like is Schneider. I have pretzel chunks and nuggets with different flavors. That sounds good. Ryan, you say, I feel you. I have a garage across the road, and these jackasses work on cars at like 12 to 3 a.m. using air compressors and impact guns. When I first got my house, they used headlamps that would light up. Oh, geez. I guess I really shouldn't complain, huh? That sounds worse. Steve said way before we were dating or anything, he said there used to be a neighbor on this side of us, or him at the time, that would turn their car on and play really super loud music real early in the morning. And this was when Steve was working for Honeywell and he didn't have to be at work till like 10 or something like that. But then he'd have to work till like 7 in the evening. But so, excuse me, needless to say, he didn't get up super early. But these jokers would turn the car on, play the music real loud on the radio, and then they would like leave the car door open and go in the house for 20 or 30 minutes. It just used to drive Steve crazy. Oh, so it shined in your bedroom until you got some really good curtains. You probably had to get those blackout curtains. Hey, John. Well, I guess, if you want to watch it on the replay, that, if you're interested in it, you say you missed a stream, but I can't contribute much to Faces of Death. I try to forget that stuff. Well, Faces of Death, at least the first one that I was talking about tonight, is not too bad. But I was talking about Traces of Death as well. And you want to talk about something that you want to try to forget because it literally is so disturbing. You say, I saw Monsters too, like Darren last night because I woke up early. It's it's a movie. I don't know what to say. You say it has silly humor like the Monsters, but it's shot like a weird commercial. Huh. Doug, you say, yo, no, like monkey brain, John. John, you say, LOL, no way, Dirk. Yeah, John, you say, fucking Bud Dwyer. I can't again. That ruined me for a week as a teen. It still affects me, John. And, I won't go into great detail and disturb people all over again, but I said the part that really made me mad, because it's not like the Bud Dwyer suicide, it's not all over the internet. It's very easily accessible. But the fact that they exploited the hell out of it, they used a poor man's public suicide in order to sell a damn tape. That's reprehensible, in my opinion. And not only did they show it, but they kept showing like 3 to 5 times the guy putting the gun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. Then they showed it slow motion. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? The first time I originally watched it, I was so shocked by seeing it happen that I turned off the tape before the extra stuff after it. So when I was rewatching it after all these years and watched the full thing without turning it off, I was like, I can't believe this. I can't. And I said, I don't care if the guy from Brain Damage Films that was selling that box set here a while back, that Darren Ramage or whatever his name is, but I don't care if he sees this. He may think I'm saying good things about it. I ain't freaking saying good things about it. But I definitely get that, John. I imagine it affected a lot of normal, sane people the same way. I mean, all us guys in here like our horror movies, but realistic horror, no thank you. Ryan, you say it's weird that a band like Filter would make a song about Bud. Yeah, I think I heard that somebody made a song about him, and it be their big hit. Yeah. Um, but again, something I would recommend watching if you're interested in learning more about Bud Dwyer's life and his early career, his family, stuff like that, is An Honest Man. Sorry, guys. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, I knew I had a headache. Maybe that would make me feel better, but I'm also running a fever again, so I wasn't sure if it was congestion or a fever or both. But anyway, sorry about that. Um, I feel like the grandpa on that Tales from the Dark Side episode, Case of the Stubborns, feel like I'm going to sneeze my dang nose off. Oh, I'm glad a bunch of snot or something didn't come out. That'd be gross. So again, I can probably stay on here till about 10ish. Sounds like I'm saying tennis. If you guys want to. But then probably at 10, I'm going to get off of here and try to relax a little bit for doomsday, I guess, as far as work's concerned. Dergie say, hey man, nice shot. I thought was about Kurt No Brain. And Ryan, you say, I always heard it was about Bud. I'm ashamed to say, guys, I'd never heard of Filter. But, my musical knowledge is kind of more restrictive than other people's, I guess. And Darky said, cool day, it's only 8:43. Yeah, where you are, I guess. I forgot about that. It's 9:43 here. Trying to, how like on Pulp Fiction, there is a scene where when John Travolta and Uma Thurman go out to eat, and she's talking about uncomfortable silences. That's why I try to ramble on about anything and everything or something. So I don't have these long stretches where I'm not saying anything. John, you say I watched From Hell earlier. It's not bad. It's kind of by numbers, but shot well. You say if you like Jack the Ripper stuff, I recommend it. I like some Jack the Ripper stuff. Um, Steve's more into the Jack the Ripper thing, though, I think, than I am. I think he likes hearing all the different theories about who Jack the Ripper was. You know, guys, I hate to bring up the whole work thing again, but I was just wondering, does anybody have any suggestions for a good lawyer, hopefully in the Louisville area, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, who, if I do get terminated from my job, that I could get to take my case, or if you would even think I'd have a case if I wanted to say it was disability discrimination or disability was why they fired me. Red, you say, I just saw a new trailer on Halloween Kills today. I saw the Halloween Kills trailer yesterday when we went to see Pearl. Yes, Wes, the streak does continue. You say you're watching That's My Boy with Adam Sandler. I don't think I've seen that one. Dirk, I did pre-order both Lost Boys and Poltergeist, and I think they're supposed to be here in my hot little hands by Friday. But you say you saw some screenshots for Poltergeist. Looks great. Ah, awesome. So Wes, where's Aaron tonight? Is he wiped out from the Mothman Festival? I'd kind of like to hear how that was. Oh, I'm sorry, Red. I meant to say, I keep saying Halloween Kills. I meant to say I saw a Halloween Ends trailer yesterday. Dougie say, I've heard there's a completely different cut of Halloween Kills. That is not on the 4K and Blu-ray release. Wow. I keep looking up here and I still got tabs open on Traces of Death and that James Vance thing. I want that up there. You say Aaron is watching Big Brother? Dirk says, laughing my ass off. So I'm thanking you boys that were live on the stream with me last night. Dirk, Darren, Wes, John. It seemed like you guys had a pretty good time last night. Unless you were lying to me. I don't think you were. I'd really like to do that again sometime. Having that many people on there, I thought it was a lot of fun. I need to see that, Dirk. I know I keep saying that, but I really do need to watch the head. Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia. Sorry, Wes. I had to eat something. You don't want me passing out here, do you? At least you ain't saying you hate the word snack. Steve is like really weird about, I said this a little bit earlier, but Steve's really weird about certain words I say. I don't know if he doesn't like the way I say them or I don't know. Yeah, TJ brings up a good point. Even chocolate covered pretzels. Dirk, you say, yeah, it's fun. We need to make sure we have subtitles. I kind of had subtitles, but like I said, they were YouTube subtitles, and sometimes those are just crazy. I think they're ones that somebody has just done, not like professionally or anything. Oh my. Y'all don't need to know this, but the fevers have been kind of rough today again. It just wearing me out. Like, I checked my temp a little bit earlier and it was 101.9 or something like that. And Steve keeps asking me, he says, isn't there some kind of treatment they give you? And I said, no, Steve, they can't give me any treatment for long haul COVID. The COVID is actually out of my body. And if you catch the COVID early, they can give you something like a C pack or Z pack or whatever the heck those things are. But Dougie said, my stepson don't like hearing the words moist or panties. Weird kid. What about moist and panties in the same sentence? I bet he really hates that, huh? I'm not trying to be dirty. I'm just trying to make a joke. Steve actually got a little perturbed with me earlier today because he thought I was just going to go head back to the computer because he says that's all I do is stay on this computer all the time. But I don't think I do. I have to be on the computer through the day, through the week, especially because I'm working and that's how I have to do my work. I must have made Dirk laugh. Steve hadn't been feeling very good today. I was hoping he wasn't getting sick from me. But he said no, it was his stomach. It was bothering him, and his wrist is aching. I told him, you probably got damn carpal tunnel. I think I've got it too. TJ, I'm guessing that Wes doesn't like chocolate covered pretzels either, because he's not he's not commenting on that. Anybody got anything they want to talk about that they've watched or they want to promote for their respective channels? Oh, I did want to tell John. I hope he's still in here. John, I'm so sorry that I missed your message a little bit earlier about testing a StreamYard. And because I forgot to turn the sound on my phone, and then I noticed I had a little Facebook message much later today, and I was like, oh, dang, John sent me a thing. And so I am sorry about that, John. I would have loved to come on there and helped you test it out. I'm hoping you were able to get somebody to do that. Darky says, Cemetery Man was a fun one to do. I need a physical release of that one for sure. Yeah, like I said on the show, I really enjoyed it the second time after not watching it for many, many years. I am actually dark, and I'm not lying. Because even though at the time, before, way before we had you on the show and you started talking about it, I didn't really envision myself watching it again. But now this kind of gives me an excuse to go back and watch it again and maybe pick up some other stuff to discuss. Because I think it's going to be really a good one to discuss, actually. Darren, I was too. I was surprised how much I like Cemetery Man now. And Darren, you say you're looking forward to Titan. I know, so Curly Jaw's in here tonight. I guess maybe he was so tired. I don't think he got off till 7. He commented under my promotion for the Butcher Baker watch along last night. He had like a sad face and said he didn't get off till 7. So perhaps he was tired, or he said, screw it, I'm just going to take me some gummies and pass out for a little bit. And I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying that may have very well been what he did. Ooh, that'll be an interesting one, Darren. All the Colors of the Dark. I would like to watch that one again. Does All the Colors of the Dark have Edwidge in it? Red, you say, well, Jeepers Creepers 4 be worse than 3. Will Paranormal Activity be back? I don't know on either one of those. If you go by the law of averages, Red, probably Jeepers Creepers 4 will be worse than 3. Dirk says, hell yeah, Darren. And Dirk is saying, yep. And, and Darren said, yeah, another Edwidge. That's all right. You boys like to talk about Edwidge, and I don't mind. I don't mind talking about Edwidge. She's one of the better ones, actually. She's better than that Fauci chick, in my opinion. I'm trying to think about some other ideas for when it's my turn again. So you guys have the benefit of like Darren's single, so, and probably even if Darren was with somebody, they probably wouldn't be on the show with us. And Dirk's wife is not on the show with us either. But because me and Steve are married, we live in the same house, of course, and we're both on the Eurocult show, and Steve's like heads up the Eurocult show. Sometimes I'll mention something. He's like, oh God, I don't want to do that one. So he kind of pressures me sometimes to either pick another one, or if I give him 2, I'll say, God, I don't want to do that one. Can we do this other one? Dirk, you say, I haven't seen a Martino film I hated. Well, you guys know the Martino film I don't care for, right? So it is now officially 10 o'clock. So is there anything anybody wants to bring up, suggest, comment on before I get off here? I want to, like I always say, I want this to be a place where you guys feel like you can come and you have a little bit of a voice here and not feel like that I just overtake everything. Dark, you've never tortured me with your picks. I actually thought Steve was going to torture me with the Cemetery Man pick, but I was pleasantly surprised. So I'll wait a few more seconds here, and now it is 10:01. So as always, I think I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night. Try to get me some rest. Eat me some more pretzels, even though Wes doesn't like them. Wes is not at my house, though. And shortly, he won't have to see me eat them on camera. Let me do these. Darren, you say I got tons of ones I want us to cover. Al Sweet Alice is another. I'll look forward to that whenever you use that one, Darren. I love Al Sweet Alice. Red, the best unknown Stephen King film. Well, I don't really know if this is unknown or not. But if you want to talk about unknown ones, I guess the first one that came to my mind when you said that was Gerald's Game. Because I don't know how many people have seen that. But that one is really good. And the book is excellent, of course. I don't ever talk bad about any Stephen King books. But I guess I would have to say Gerald's Game. But with that being said, I am going to get off here for the night, I think. And goodness, wore out again. Man, I hate this long COVID. Durkee say Gerald's Game is great. I totally agree. But I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. Heck, we still got 8 people in here. Darren, you say Needful Things I hear is good. Yes, Needful Things is excellent as well, Darren. Even though the subject matter was a little bit darker than my normal streams, I'm probably going to wait a while before I do another one on Faces of Death and Faces of Death 2 and Traces of Death 2. I'm probably going to wait a while before I do another one on those, because those unfortunately do take us to very dark places that I don't like to go to often. But with all that being said, thank you guys. All you guys have an open invitation to come on live on the stream anytime you want to. Camera, no camera or camera. It does not matter. You have a great night, Darren. You're very welcome, Texas, and you have a good night too. Dirk, Red, John. Let's see. Wes, if you're still in here, TJ. Trying not to miss anybody. Menelect. I thank all you guys for joining me tonight. But I will catch everyone on the flip side. And y'all have a good night now.